You're listening to Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Call Don right now, 682-1270.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. And welcome back to the program. And joining me in studio, we have Chris Brentel. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I don't think we've talked about Michael Sam yet. He hasn't really. He actually had a pretty decent game this past weekend. But I didn't want to fall into the trap that ESPN's been falling into. Everything is about Michael Sam or Johnny Manziel. And then when Michael Sam sacked Johnny Manziel, they just went insane. I mean, it was everywhere. It's almost like the satellite that ESPN broadcast from could have exploded from the excitement that they had from Michael Sam sacking Johnny Manziel. He sacked him twice too, didn't he? Or was it Hoyer?
So. I think
he
had two sacks. I think one was against Hoyer, but
yeah. So I mean, he seems to be on the way to making the team. I don't think he'll be a starter. He'll probably be on special teams to begin with, and a backup linebacker. But he seems to be adjusting pretty well. The reason I mentioned Michael Sam, and I have a short little clip. I'm going to play it for you. This is from ESPN yesterday, and you knew it was only a matter of time before this came up. It's only about a minute, so I'll just play it, and then we'll talk about whether this is an appropriate topic to talk about. Have you seen this clip yet? Okay.
No, I haven't seen the clip.
Okay, so you're going into this blind. Well, I'll get your reaction to it then.
How is he fitting in with his Rams teammates so far?
And I apologize. The person that did it with a handheld cell phone in front of their TV. That's the worst. But it's the best one. It's the best copy I could find.
Well, Jay, defensive tackle Kendall Langford said that Michael Sam is simply just one of the guys, and he seems to be taking a rookie approach in terms of just listening and learning at his own pace. He said that you can tell he's just trying to feel his way through and perhaps see what guys he can relate to. But another Rams defense...
That's not the bad part. So one person said he's fitting in, and he's trying to find his friends, and he's doing fine. Here's the second guy.
Defensive player told me that, quote, Sam is respecting our space, and that from his perspective, he seems to think that Michael Sam is waiting to kind of take a shower as not to make his teammates feel uncomfortable, while Langford and linebacker Alec Ogletree told me that they didn't know that specifically and also weren't tracking that. Now,
and that's the part I wanted to. Okay, for those that didn't understand, a second player asked, and of course not named. According to this reporter, said that Michael Sam might be waiting to take his shower last so he doesn't upset the teammates. Why is the ESPN reporting on this?
That's the big why. It's unbelievable. They report on one play of him sacking Manziel, and now they have shower reports. Was she in there? Is she allowed in there?
Well, she's not a bad-looking girl. I mean, I'm sure the players wouldn't mind, but that would probably open up a lot of lawsuits. I have no idea. Now, I mean, you went to now your degree is in journalism, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a degree in journalism. You're a sports guy. You do sports reporting. Would you ever report on the showering habits of anyone?
No, I wouldn't. That's not the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm talking about, playing football and rushing the quarterback. Yeah. What do you want to know about Sam? Well, okay, he made the first cut. He had a couple of sacks at the scrimmage the other day. He did good in the last preseason game. Also, what's going on with his shower habits? Is he waiting for the other players? Is he going first? I mean, how is that going? That's what everybody wants to know.
Well, and look, I mean, I know I know there's out of the 90 people in the locker room, this was before the 75-man cut. Out of the 90 people in the locker room, there might be a couple guys that would be uncomfortable. And maybe he's doing that to respect those guys. But we don't really need to hear about it.
Yeah, I don't care. I couldn't care less who's showering, who's not showering, who's waiting to shower, who showered first. I couldn't care less. This whole thing, ESPN and the media outlets like it. And it's not just sports media. I mean, it's everybody. They want to shove the Sam thing in your face and shove it down your throat. And that's the problem I have with it, is why are we...
Yeah. We'll try not to,
Why are we... why is this happening? They claim, that people aren't... They're afraid that he's going to get backlash. And they're afraid that players won't accept him. And they're hoping players won't accept him because that's a big story. Why do you think they're commenting on his showering habit?
Yeah, and they're not concerned with... They probably... And I'm not speaking for everybody at ESPN, but I bet there is a faction of people at ESPN that hopes he doesn't make the team so that they can lecture everybody. And now, he made it a big issue when he did, when he was planning to do the Oprah reality show before the draft. I mean, he's making a bit of a spectacle of himself too. So he's not completely blameless in this. I mean, he could have just said, this is who I am. I don't want to talk about it again. I want to talk about football, and refuse to talk about it at that point.
And I don't really... Go ahead.
Oh, well, the reality show thing, I think that was just a misstep. I mean, he seems like a good kid. He'll probably be a passable player. I mean, he was drafted in the 7th round, so you're not going to... 7th? Yeah, 7th round. You're not going to expect great things from a guy like that. He's undersized for the NFL. He's too slow. But he does, at least at this point, he's made a couple plays. So he'll make the team, and he'll probably play for 4 or 5 years and retire. I mean, that seems to be about the average length for an average career for somebody that's not really that talented.
And you're right. You know what? And he's probably going to be a 3rd string, 4th string player. And so I didn't even have a problem with the reality show that might have happened because, he's just trying to think of his financial future. Hey, you want to go on a business venture, do it. I didn't care about that. I more have a problem with the fact that everybody's worried about how they're worried about how people that, may not accept or may think homosexuality is a sin. They're worried about them making a big deal out of Sam's lifestyle, yet they're the ones making the big deal. Yeah. And that's the problem I have with it. He, like you said, he's done nothing. I don't have one problem with him. He seems like he wants to focus on football. Like he did say do the reality show. I don't think that's a big deal. Hey, you want to think about your money? Like you said, he probably won't even be in the league for 5 years. Yeah. So he's going to have to do something besides football. Well, so I don't care about that. But I'm just sick of it being shoved down in our face at all times.
Well, I wouldn't mind the reality show, except he didn't tell anybody about it before the draft. I think if he had told the teams before the draft, he probably wouldn't have been drafted, though. That's the thing. But I think
good business move then.
Yeah, but and it's not a huge knock on him. I mean, he had to do what he had to do, but and of course they canceled the show after I think the Rams expressed a little bit of concern with that. So he didn't dig his heels in and say I have to have this show. He's trying to focus on football, but yeah, I think you're right. I think ESPN constantly bringing this up. It's almost like the exact opposite of Tebow. Tebow was ridiculed for his lifestyle, but ESPN was all over it. And I guarantee if Tim Tebow had a tryout with a team, he would be all over ESPN again because there are just certain guys that get ratings.
Yep.
And they're trying to make Michael Sam into one of those guys. I'm not quite sure it's there.
Yeah, I think you have to be a high-profile player.
You have to be good
to do that. And, plus I thought it was kind of funny, the comments prior to it as well, prior to the shower thing is, he's befriending some guys. Like, we're talking about his friendships now. And it's like, he's just acting like one of the guys eating Doritos, playing Xbox in the locker room between practices. Like nothing weird here.
Like he didn't go to a major football college in the first place.
Exactly.
I mean, Missouri's it's an SEC school. He's played high level football before. And I'm sure he's taken showers before, and there has been no incidents during the showers. So just stop it, ESPN. So what do we have going on in sports?
Well, we have an update because of the huge finale in racing, the East-West clashes this weekend, and plus an update for Wyoming and Montana for their big game. Montana's got some injury issues.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll see you in an hour. News Talk 1270, KIML.
We'll be right back after we pay some bills and cover Don's exorbitant salary. Thanks, Don. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270, KIML. Call Don right now, 682-1270.
News Talk 1270, KIML. Don Carpenter Show. And welcome back to the program. It's 7:08. And what we're going to do in this hour, I saw this story a couple days ago. Well, actually, we'll get into it in a second. We'll take a call first. Before we get into anything, we'll take a call. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about your conversation about the ESPN and their coverage of Sam's. I mean, I think if you look at ESPN and Toto these days, you see that they've just become, politically driven. I was watching, I think it was Keith Olbermann last night on ESPN, and he's on a rant about a guy that's the CEO of Center Plate, which is one of the companies that provides concession services to various stadiums and arenas and so forth, that abused his dog,
Yeah.
And so, what does that have to do with sports? Nothing. The guy's not involved in sports. He provides concessions to sporting events, concession services. And so, I think it's just typical of ESPN anymore. I watch sports or ESPN from time to time because I don't want to think about politics, to be quite honest with you, at that particular time. So, but now ESPN has become politically and agenda-driven as well. So, they've just become another political talk show in some respects on some topics. So I think that's just the ESPN standard these days.
Well, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And bringing back Keith Olbermann, I remember 20 years ago, Keith Olbermann was on Sports Center, and he did a straight sports show. He didn't do any of the political stuff, and he was good. He's a good sportscaster, but bringing him back after the MSNBC and whatever network he was on after that, bringing him back to ESPN kind of does show that they're more interested in advancing some kind of an agenda. And, all you have to do is just look at all these suspensions that they've been laying out. If you stray from the politically correct line, you get suspended by ESPN.
Well, you're talking about the comment that one of the people made in regard to the Ray Rice suspension or whatever, and he got suspended for 5 days. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I think it is politically driven. If you look at how many times they comment about, President Obama called Sam's after he was drafted and congratulated him and all this stuff, and every time, Barack Obama called the homosexual basketball player after he came out of the closet. And
Collins,
they make big stories out of those things because I get, and I if they want to talk about, the politics involved in the appointment of the new baseball commissioner or something like that, that's at least sports related. Okay, I'll give them that. But they brought Keith. You're right. They brought Keith Olbermann there for a reason, because his show is very much about politics, if you will. And they look for any reason that they can get a politically driven story, like somebody abusing a dog, which is a big, huge thing today. It seems like people go to jail for longer periods of time for abusing dogs than they do children. And so ESPN drives that bus through Olbermann's comments as well last night, and the same thing on Sam's and everything else. I think they do want to see this story on Sam's. I think they want to, it's a story for them, so, they want to get as much red meat on that as they possibly can. But they do that on everything anymore involving politics, and I think the thing to do is that, I'm going to start watching Fox Sports or some other sports program, because I just can't hardly stomach the agenda with ESPN being politically driven these days.
Well, and I think Fox Sports 1 is in a pretty good position, because you're not the first person I've seen that's mentioned this. I mean, ESPN is playing with fire here. I mean, they have a 30-year head start on all of these other upstart sports networks. But if they get too political, even people that agree with them, and I mean, I've seen this from people that are, that lean to the left, they don't really want to mix their politics with their sports. They just want to. It's escapism. I mean, the world is complicated and cynical enough without having to inject that kind of stuff into a football game. You just want to go out there and watch a bunch of people hit each other.
Well, that's right, and I think the thing too, I'm wondering if ESPN's ratings have gone down as a reason why that they've taken this turn to add more political emphasis to their programming. I don't know, because I don't know what their ratings have or haven't been, but they've definitely made a conscious decision. I mean, first of all, if you give Keith Olbermann an hour program, you're going to hear about politics from that guy. That's all there is to it. So if they give him an hour long program, they knew what was going on. And ESPN, he doesn't get to design all his own programming. He gets input into it, I'm sure. But ESPN's approving everything that he does.
Oh yeah. And ESPN is a part of the Disney empire, which is the largest media company in the world. So, they're not a standalone entity anymore, and I think maybe some of the influence of some of the other divisions is kind of starting to creep into their sports coverage.
Well, I think they are. There was even a comment, last week by somebody on ESPN about some of the professional sports figures' reactions to what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Give me a break.
Oh, yeah. They don't know anything more about it than we do.
Exactly. But the whole thing about it is, how is that sports related? There's nothing sports related about that incident. Nothing.
No. And look, and it's not like we don't have a million things going on in sports right now. We have preseason football. I mean, baseball is coming towards the end of their season. There's a million things they could talk about instead of Ferguson or Michael Sam's showering habits.
That has reached an all-time low when they start talking about his showering habits.
Yeah, I mean, the guy hasn't had any problems with his team. If they keep this up, they might start problems with his team and get the guy cut, which, again, I said last break, I wouldn't be surprised if some people at ESPN want him to get cut so that they can preach to the rest of us about how intolerant we are. And personally, I hope he does well, because if he does well, we won't have to hear about this the next time a gay player comes into the NFL. It'll be over with, and we won't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, if you remember when he was at his house with his gay lover, when he got told that he was drafted, and he got the big kiss on television. That's all, in my opinion. I think that was planned and staged.
Oh, yeah, it was for the TV show.
The NFL's been pushing his story as well, to see how tolerant we are. Maybe they think there's a new, fan base out there that they haven't attracted or whatever yet among the gay community. I don't know what their thought is on that, but how about this? How about when a player gets drafted, we don't mention whether he's heterosexual or homosexual, either one.
Well, and newsflash for the NFL, they've had gay players before. They just haven't come out and told the press about it. I mean, I guarantee over the 100-year history of the NFL or whatever, it's close to 100 years now. They've had gay players, and that player's team knew about it, and nobody talked about it because it's not, they didn't want to make a big deal about it. I mean, the stats would prove when thousands and thousands of players have played in the NFL, at some point there had to have been a gay player that just didn't make a big deal about it.
I don't particularly care whether a player is homosexual or heterosexual. I just don't see why the NFL, ESPN, Oprah Network or anybody else has to make a deal out of it one way or the other, and just leave it alone. Don't even go there. That's the thing about it. But they have to be. I think you're right. They're looking for a story at the end of this. And if you look at it from their perspective, see, they've got a story either way.
Oh yeah.
I think that's why they continue to push it, because it's a story for them either way. It's a better story for them if he starts getting harassed in the locker room or players don't like him being in there and so forth and so on. But there's a story for him either way with Sands.
Yeah, and if he's a success, that's a story for him. But on the other hand, if he's a success, it won't be a story for the next guy. So that's why I think, and it's probably not a majority. I mean, I'm sure the majority of people there want him to do well as well. Or, maybe they're actually objective journalists and don't care how he does one way or the other. But I still think, and maybe it's just my tinfoil hat, but I think there are people that want him to fail so that they can preach to the rest of us.
Well, there's a part of me that wants him to fail now, too. I didn't feel this way before, but I feel this way now, and that is because I don't want to hear about him all season long or for seasons to come or whatever the case may be. Look, he's a backbencher. He's going to be, I think. I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's a starter. He doesn't look like a phenom to me. And so, how many other people that are, second, third, fourth string or special teams guys are going to get that kind of coverage? I just want to, if I watch football, I want to hear about football and not this guy's, whether this guy's homosexual or not. So I'm kind of now at the place where I think, I just want the guy to go too, and that's not fair to him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being fair to him, but they're pushing this story so hard. Let's talk about something else. If they left the story alone, I'm fine with the guy. I just don't think the backstory is important. I don't think it's anything.
Well, and I bet you there are a lot of people that are in the same boat with you, that the media and ESPN in particular might have turned the public against this guy. And I mean, it like you said, it's probably not fair to him, but it's also that's how a lot of people feel. I mean, all you have to do is go to the NFL's website and any story and read the comments, and just about every comment is enough already. We don't want to hear about this guy unless he does something good on the football field. I mean, if he got a sack the other night or a couple sacks, show us that. That would be fine. I don't mind watching the guy play football, but I really don't want to hear about how he's doing in practice, how he's getting along with the other players. I mean, he's a professional. I'm sure he'll get along with the other players. They're professionals. It's not like he's going to the Dolphins. And if he went to the Dolphins, it might have been a problem. But I mean, they're all professionals. Jeff Fisher's a good coach. He's not going to let something bad happen. So quit chasing a story that's not going to happen.
Well, I think the risk they run on that, though, too, is you keep pushing that story. Some of those pro athletes start getting a little bit offended when some second, third stringers stories getting pushed, and and they're first stringers that are as a position player and so forth, wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, and so forth. Some of those guys start getting offended by that, which is just going to create problems in the whole thing if they do. So, I mean, leave it alone. Leave the guy alone. Let him play football. If he's good enough to get drafted, if he's good enough to make the team, God bless him, so be it. But just shut up about his about his homosexuality. I don't want to hear it anymore.
And I think a lot of people agree with you. I do think a lot of people agree with you. Any final thoughts? I'll let you have the last word.
No, I just think we need to. I'm gonna. I don't know if it's going to be a total boycott, but I'm definitely going to cut down on my watching of ESPN, because I think that's the only way that we get input into those kind of things is with our viewership or our lack thereof, and I think that's the only way that they're going to get the message. So that's what I plan to do, and I would encourage others to do likewise.
There you go. And I think that's a pretty good idea. I stopped watching them years ago. So, hey, thanks a lot for the call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I had no idea this was going to be such a hot-button issue. Yeah, I mean, look, I still think ESPN is going to torpedo this poor guy's career. I mean, he did a little bit on his own to make things worse for himself, but reporting on the guy's showering habits, really, I mean, that's just a little bit much. Okay, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. News Talk 1270 KIML.
He's not bald. That's a solar panel for a talk radio machine. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. 70 K.